Imagine waking up to your country paralyzed. No internet, ruptured gas pipelines, frozen bank systems. Not by bombs, but unseen attacks beneath the waves. This nearly became reality in the Baltic Sea, where NATO now guards undersea cables and pipelines like a digital fortress. The alliance's critical undersea infrastructure coordination cell redefines collective defense for our era. How do you protect invisible lifelines? Article 5, once about tanks and troops, now shields fiber optics and energy grids, the silent battlegrounds of modern conflict. The rules of war have changed, and NATO is rewriting the playbook. Cold War roots, modern threats. In 1949, NATO formed as a direct response to Soviet military threats. 12 nations signed the North Atlantic Treaty with one clear purpose: to counter conventional invasion forces that could roll across Europe's borders. The threat was visible, measurable, and geographically defined. Tanks, artillery divisions, and air squadrons formed the core concerns. NATO built its strategy around these tangible military assets, developing layered defenses to stop an advancing army. Today's threats operate in shadows rather than battlefields. Cyberattacks disable national infrastructure, disinformation fracture societies, and sabotage targets undersea cables. The 2007 Russian-linked cyber attacks against Estonia marked a turning point. Hackers shut down government websites, banks, and media outlets without deploying a single soldier. This demonstrated how digital operations could cripple a nation, forcing NATO to rethink its defense paradigm. The alliance now records over 1,000 significant cyber incidents monthly across member states. Attacks range from defense contractor breaches to disruptions at hospitals and transportation systems. Unlike Soviet tank divisions requiring massive logistics, these strikes originate from anywhere, often through proxy servers masking the attacker. The 2022 Viasat satellite attack showed one operation could simultaneously cripple thousands of European wind turbines across multiple nations. Article 5's strength lies in its adaptable simplicity. The collective defense clause never specified response methods, simply declaring an attack against one as an attack against all. This flexibility allowed NATO to invoke Article 5 after September 11th, deploying air patrols and intelligence sharing rather than conventional warfare. The precedent-established collective defense applies to asymmetric threats. This framework now governs cyber and hybrid warfare. In 2016, NATO recognized cyberspace as an operational domain, meaning cyber attacks could trigger Article 5. The Cyber Operations Center in Mons continuously monitors member networks. When Russian hackers targeted German hospitals in 2023, NATO deployed cyber experts within 72 hours to contain damage and trace attack vectors. The 2021 hybrid warfare strategy addresses coordinated campaigns combining cyber attacks, disinformation, and economic pressure. A NATO task force tracks suspicious financial flows funding sabotage. Lithuania intercepts 3 drone incursions weekly near sensitive sites. These responses still operate under Article 5's original principle. Collective security endures even as aggression methods evolve. NATO's institutional flexibility stems from consensus-based decision-making. While slower than authoritarian commands, this creates durable strategies with broad support. Recent additions like Space as an Operational Domain, 2019, and the Climate Security Center, 2022, expand Article 5's umbrella without treaty amendments. Deterrence has similarly modernized. Multinational battle groups in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland serve as conventional deterrence and rapid response forces. Cyber red teams probe member defenses, having identified vulnerabilities in Portugal's energy grid before attackers could strike. Intelligence sharing now operates at digital speed. NATO's Cooperative Cyber Defense Center analyzes 50,000 malware samples annually. When Sweden detected network probing against its fighter jet program in 2024, partners received technical indicators within hours, mirroring Cold War early warning systems updated for cyber threats. Critics claim NATO strays from its purpose, but the core logic remains. Collective security outperforms individual defenses. The alliance now conducts more cyber exercises than traditional war games. Locked Shields annually pits 2,000 specialists against simulated infrastructure attacks. This adaptability keeps NATO relevant. The alliance monitoring Frankfurt's internet exchange points with folded gap-level vigilance activated its energy security team when hackers disrupted Norwegian gas facilities, proving collective defense now protects supply chains alongside borders. The evolution continues as threats multiply. NATO's 2024 Climate Security Assessment identified 14 bases vulnerable to sea level rise, prompting both hardening measures and contingency plans. This pragmatic approach maintains the fundamental security promise while confronting emerging risks head-on. The Baltic Sea test case. Last September, Swedish naval patrols spotted unidentified divers near the Baltic Connector gas pipeline between Finland and Estonia. The divers disappeared before authorities could intercept them, leaving behind equipment that suggested more than recreational diving. NATO's Baltic Command immediately elevated its alert status, treating the incident as a potential hybrid warfare operation, an ambiguous threat that could be state-sponsored sabotage or independent actors working for unknown interests. This response reflects NATO's new standard operating procedures. Any unexplained activity near critical undersea infrastructure now triggers coordinated surveillance across member states. The Baltic Sea has become the undersea chessboard of hybrid warfare. Its dense network of energy pipelines and internet cables makes it strategically vital and vulnerable. The 2022 Nord Stream sabotage demonstrated how a single attack could disrupt energy supplies while obscuring responsibility. Despite investigations, no party has been conclusively identified. This ambiguity is the essence of hybrid warfare, creating security dilemmas without clear thresholds for retaliation. NATO now tracks suspicious movements through satellite surveillance and seabed sensors, but attribution remains challenging. Russian submarines and research vessels frequently operate near pipeline routes, gathering data that could aid future sabotage. In 2024 alone, NATO recorded 37 incidents near undersea infrastructure, from drones shadowing cable-laying ships to attempts to interfere with monitoring equipment. The lack of obvious military involvement makes conventional deterrence ineffective. Sweden's NATO accession in March 2024 transformed regional defenses. With Sweden and Finland now members, NATO controls nearly the entire Baltic coastline. Sweden's advanced submarine fleet and strategic Gotland Island now anchor NATO's integrated monitoring network. The alliance's ability to respond to Baltic threats has dramatically improved, a fact that hasn't gone unnoticed in Moscow. Poland exemplifies NATO's infrastructure protection shift, constructing a $220 million maritime security center in Gdynia. Equipped with long-range radar and unmanned vessels, it focuses on identifying threats to undersea cables. Partnering with Denmark and Norway, Poland deployed seabed sensors covering key choke points, detecting acoustic anomalies that could indicate tampering. Similar NATO-funded installations are planned for the North Sea and Mediterranean. The alliance's strategy hinges on deterrence by denial, making infrastructure too difficult to attack undetected. Unlike Cold War deterrence, this focuses on resilience. Estonia buried backup fiber optic cables along hardened routes, while Germany tests modular LNG terminals. Investments in surveillance and rapid repair capabilities aim to reduce potential disruptions before they cascade. NATO's 2023 summit classified attacks on undersea cables as potential Article 5 triggers. A joint undersea infrastructure protection cell now coordinates patrols and emergency drills. When Norway suspected Russian interference with a Barents Sea cable last January, NATO dispatched specialist teams within 48 hours, reinforcing the need for prepositioned repair ships and standardized protocols. The Baltic model is expanding globally. Portugal leads efforts to map vulnerabilities along transatlantic internet cables, while Greece and Italy conduct joint Adriatic patrols. Even Ireland enhances monitoring after Russian naval activity near cable landing points. These efforts reflect NATO's recognition that hybrid warfare exploits gaps between civilian infrastructure and military defenses. Technological adaptations accelerate. NATO's Dynamic Mongoose 2024 exercise tested unmanned underwater vehicles for pipeline inspections, while Lithuania's energy grid shares real-time data with NATO cyber units. Machine learning algorithms now analyze pressure drops and data flows for anomalies. Yet challenges persist. International law lacks clear thresholds for responding to ambiguous attacks, complicating NATO's decisions. Information sharing bottlenecks remain as some members restrict civilian infrastructure data. Industry cooperation varies. Scandinavian firms collaborate actively, while Southern European counterparts often resist military involvement. Russian reactions confirm these measures bite. Moscow protests NATO's Seabed monitoring as militarization, while state media disparages sensor networks as espionage tools. Clear signs of discomfort with improved surveillance. Meanwhile, Russian tactics evolve, using civilian vessels to drop signal jamming devices near cables. NATO's Baltic operations offer a blueprint for 21st century collective defense. The emphasis on resilience over retaliation provides a template for non-traditional threats. As climate change opens Arctic routes and tensions rise in cable-rich waters like the Taiwan Strait, the Baltic experience proves invaluable. Early detection, rapid response, and shared responsibility. These principles now define security far beyond traditional battlefields. Every unidentified diver and pipeline anomaly reinforces that the next conflict may begin not with missiles, but with cut cables in the dark depths below. Cyber warfare's collective defense dilemma. When Russian hackers disabled Lithuania's banking networks for 72 hours in 2023, NATO treated the incident as a potential Article 5 case despite the absence of physical damage or casualties. This response marked a critical evolution in collective defense, recognizing that cyber attacks can inflict strategic harm comparable to conventional military strikes. The incident exemplified NATO's dilemma: how to apply traditional alliance principles to attacks that leave no visible wreckage, cross borders invisibly, and often resist clear attribution. Cyber operations spread like digital epidemics, silent, borderless, and hard to trace. Unlike tank columns that announce invasions, malware hides in legitimate traffic until activation. The Lithuania attack originated from servers routed through compromised systems across 3 continents, mirroring Russia's 2015 to 2016 penetration of Ukraine's power grid. Hackers require no masked formations, just patience to infiltrate networks months before striking. NATO's response framework evolved through hard lessons. The 2007 attacks on Estonia first showed how digital strikes could paralyze a member state. Banks, media, and government sites collapsed under DDoS assaults. This spurred creation of the Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence, CCDCOE, in Tallinn, now providing 24/7 monitoring for 38 nations. By 2024, 78% of NATO members reported critical cyber attacks disrupting essential services or infrastructure, compelling the alliance to designate cyberspace as an operational domain alongside air, land, and sea. The 2016 U.S. election interference cemented NATO's threat awareness. While not an Article 5 case, Russia's campaign against NATO's leading member triggered the 2018 Cyber Operations Pledge, integrating cyber capabilities into national defenses. NATO's 2024 digital transformation strategy tackles these challenges through resilience, defense, and integration. New standards require infrastructure, like Finland's data centers, to have air-gapped backups and redundancies. Cyber incidents now qualify for Article 5 consultation if they cause casualties, economic disruption, or infrastructure damage. Lithuania's banking crisis met the economic threshold, triggering NATO's cyber rapid reaction team like fighter jets scrambling to intercept intruders. Estonia's decentralized model shows effective defense in action. Government systems distribute across hundreds of secure servers, while citizens use blockchain-powered IDs. Attacks isolate single nodes without collapsing networks. The Tallinn-based CCDCOE codified these tactics into the Tallinn Manual, now guiding NATO operations. Estonia's volunteer cyber defense unit, replicated in 14 member states, provide civilian IT experts during crises. Members adapt collective defense to national needs. Poland's Cyber Defense Forces Command operates independently, but integrates with NATO protocols. The UK focuses on offensive capabilities through its national cyber force, while Germany prioritizes infrastructure protection. Annual exercises like Locked Shields test these varied approaches. The 2024 scenario involved 4,000 participants from 38 countries defending simulated power grids. Lessons directly informed NATO's revised cyber defense policy. Technological adaptation keeps pace. NATO prepositions cyber defense hits, hardened servers with forensic tools, like military equipment stockpiles. Microsoft Secure Cloud Partnership acknowledges commercial systems underpin national security. Research targets quantum encryption and AI threat detection, while the 2025 quantum communication infrastructure aims to future-proof communications. Attribution remains complex but improving. NATO combines technical forensics with intelligence sharing. Malware signatures from incident reports reveal patterns. The Lithuania attack bore Russian military intelligence hallmarks, though evidence took weeks to compile. Legal frameworks still lag. The Tallinn Manual 2.0 categorizes severe cyber incidents as potentially equivalent to kinetic strikes, but members hesitate over ambiguous cases. The compromise holds that repeated lower-level attacks could accumulate into collective response justification, like border skirmishes escalating to war. NATO extends cyber defense beyond Europe. Through the Cyber Defense Pledge, members assist Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, frequent Russian targets, with infrastructure upgrades. Joint operations with South Korea and Japan counter-shared. Threats like North Korean hackers, creating de facto defense networks beyond treaty borders. Gaps persist. Only 19 members have fully operational cyber units, and reliance on U.S. assets creates vulnerabilities. Critics note NATO's reactive posture lags behind Russian and Chinese doctrines emphasizing persistent network penetration. Emerging threats like AI-powered malware and quantum decryption will test defenses further, keeping cyber resilience at the core of NATO's mission. Lithuania-proved financial systems are critical infrastructure. Disabling them harms security as directly as bombing bridges. Article 5's adaptation shows how NATO applies enduring principles to new warfare domains, a flexibility crucial for facing AI conflict and climate security challenges ahead. The Article 5 stress test. The prospect of a U.S. president rejecting NATO commitments during a crisis isn't hypothetical. Following former President Trump's 2024 campaign remarks suggesting conditional support for allies, defense planners across Europe began gaming out scenarios where Washington might hesitate to honor Article 5. Legal analyses consistently reached the same conclusion. NATO's collective defense framework would continue functioning even without full U.S. participation. This resilience stems from deliberate structural choices made over 7 decades. The treaty's design ensures no single member, not even the United States, holds veto power over collective security decisions. Article 5's activation mechanism is intentionally distributed. The North Atlantic Council, NATO's principal decision-making body, operates by consensus, but not unanimity. Once members agree an armed attack has occurred, individual nations determine their response contributions. This prevents any one ally from blocking the process, while allowing proportional national responses. The system worked during NATO's only Article 5 invocation after September 11th, when members contributed based on capability rather than equally. Belgium deployed naval assets, while Hungary provided airspace access. Both actions satisfied collective defense obligations without matching America's full military engagement. History shows NATO can weather political storms. The 1956 Suez Crisis saw U.S. opposition to British and French actions, while France's 1966 military withdrawal forced operational changes. Yet both events left Article 5 intact. More recently, Turkey's 2019 Syria incursion created tensions, but NATO maintained joint air policing from Turkish bases throughout. These cases prove the alliance's institutional shock absorbers work even during major disagreements. European defense spending trends further reduce dependence on U.S. leadership. Before Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, only 9 NATO members met the 2% GDP defense spending benchmark. By 2025, 23 members achieved this target, adding nearly $200 billion annually to European defense budgets. Poland now spends 4% of GDP on defense, operating more advanced tanks than Germany. France boosted nuclear strike capabilities with new ballistic missile submarines. This redistribution means Europe could sustain credible deterrence even if U.S. contributions waver. Germany exemplifies this transformation. The Bundeswehr's $110 billion modernization fund procured F-35 fighters, Arrow 3 missile defenses, and heavy transport drones, capabilities designed for NATO interoperability. Chancellor Scholz affirmed these purchases strengthen NATO while ensuring European autonomy. Similar patterns emerged across the continent. Norway accelerated submarine acquisitions, Italy modernized its carrier fleet, and the Czech Republic established a rapid deployment division. NATO's command structure reinforces resilience. SHAPE in Belgium operates with 12,000 multinational personnel, ensuring continuous planning despite political shifts. When Poland assumed leadership of NATO's Rapid Deployable Corps in 2023, Polish generals worked alongside Spanish and Danish officers, making the force less vulnerable to any single nation's policy changes. Article 5's durability lies in reciprocity. America's commitment to defend Estonia mirrors Estonia's obligation to help defend the U.S. This mutual guarantee creates self-reinforcing incentives. During 2024 exercises, Estonian Special Forces joined Spanish naval units, simulating Balearic Islands defense, showing how obligations extend beyond immediate regional threats. Allied command transformation has wargamed partial U.S. disengagement since 2021. Simulations confirmed Europe could sustain Baltic air policing and Mediterranean patrols, though prolonged conflicts would still need American logistics. Contingency plans now emphasize strategic enablers. European nations investing in refueling tankers, transport aircraft, and satellite communications to reduce U.S. dependence. NATO's decision-making includes safeguards against abrupt reversals. The defense planning cycle operates on 4-year periods, locking in capability targets. The 2023 Vilnius Summit agreements bind members to 10-year defense pledges, politically consequential commitments outlasting most administrations. Secretary General Stoltenberg's extended tenure provides additional continuity. Alternative leadership frameworks complement U.S. stewardship. France and Germany co-chair the European Initiative for Enhanced NATO Security, while the UK-led Joint Expeditionary Force operates as a rapid reaction pool. When Denmark needed emergency air defense during Swedish fighter upgrades, Spanish Eurofighters assumed the mission through existing NATO agreements. No U.S. approval required. Standardization agreements ensure European forces can share resources independently. Munition stockpiles established after Russia's invasion preposition compatible artillery shells across 6 European depots, designed for multinational access without U.S. oversight. Financial mechanisms distribute risk. NATO's common funding flows through multi-year budgets, requiring supermajority approval to alter. When Hungary blocked 2024 infrastructure upgrades near Ukraine, the alliance rerouted funds through parallel instruments, showing institutional workarounds to obstruction. Nuclear deterrence formed NATO's ultimate fallback. While US B-61 bombs require American authorization, France's independent nuclear forces remain committed to European defense. President Macron's 2023 declaration that France's nuclear umbrella extends to all EU members created an additional deterrence layer. The NATO Response Forces 2025 restructuring blends high readiness components from multiple nations without predominant U.S. leadership. A Spanish general now commands the expanded Very High Readiness Joint Task Force, a deliberate hedge against over-centralization. NATO functions as both a defense pact and continuous diplomatic forum. Weekly ambassadorial meetings build relationships transcending government changes. When Turkey blocked Sweden's accession, Daily informal discussions maintain channels that eventually enabled compromise. These adaptations mitigate risks from U.S. policy shifts. Should America reduce contributions? European members now possess sufficient forces to sustain initial defense while diplomacy addresses gaps. NATO's multiple redundancy systems, military, financial, diplomatic, make collapse scenarios improbable. The treaty's framers anticipated political shifts. Southern Front. Their design ensures the structure bends without breaking. While global attention fixates on NATO's eastern flank, the alliance has quietly developed a southern security network stretching from North Africa to the Persian Gulf. This strategic reorientation addresses risks emerging across the Mediterranean. Terrorist cells in the Sahel, Russian naval bases in Libya, Chinese port investments in Algeria, and migrant smuggling routes that destabilize European borders. The 2024 Southern Neighborhood Action Plan formalized these concerns, directing resources toward a region traditionally secondary in NATO planning. 14 new partnership agreements since 2023 reveal the scope of this southern expansion. In Tunisia, NATO-funded coastal surveillance stations near the Libyan border now employ thermal cameras and radar systems capable of tracking small boats up to 25 nautical miles offshore, critical for intercepting arms shipments to militants. Morocco became the first African nation to join NATO's Defense Education Enhancement Program, training officers in cyber defense at a new facility outside Rabat. These relationships lack the publicity of NATO's eastern deployments, but indicate a durable strategic shift, extending the alliance's digital and physical security architecture southward. Counterterrorism cooperation forms another pillar. The Sahel's collapse into jihadist-controlled zones prompted NATO's 2023 Counterterrorism Advisory Package. Mauritanian Special Forces now train alongside Portuguese Marines in Nouakchot's Urban Warfare Simulation Center, practicing raids on mock insurgent compounds. Algeria receives NATO assistance in operating border surveillance drones, particularly after Russian Wagner Group personnel were spotted near its gas facilities at Hassi R'Mel. Russian and Chinese regional inroads necessitate this approach. Russia maintains an estimated 2,000 military personnel at Libya's Al-Wadiya Air Base, reportedly storing Caliber cruise missiles within striking distance of NATO's southern members. China's $20 billion port project in Algeria includes dual-use provisions mirroring its Djibouti-based model. NATO's partnership strategy offers alternatives through initiatives like the 2024 NATO Gulf Maritime Security Initiative, providing Bahrain and Qatar with mine countermeasure vessels that also deter Iranian coastal threats. The creation of a special representative for the Southern Neighborhood in 2023 institutionalized these efforts. Based in Naples, the office achieved its first major breakthrough by standardizing intelligence sharing with Egypt and Jordan, countries historically reluctant to formalize Western security ties. The representative also mediates disputes. Italian objections to Turkey's Libya policies required delicate handling during 2024 planning sessions. Energy security dominates NATO's southern calculus. With Europe reliant on Algerian gas, NATO conducts monthly submarine patrols along the Transmed pipeline's underwater sections. The alliance established an early warning mechanism where Algerian authorities can request NATO surveillance drones within 90 minutes of a pipeline breach in remote desert areas. Similar arrangements protect Morocco's phosphorite shipments, vital for European food security. Migration control represents a persistent focus. NATO's Operation Sea Guardian now shares radar data with Frontex to track vessels approaching European waters. Turkish and Greek naval units coordinate under NATO auspices, though critics argue this blurs military and border enforcement roles. Israel's inclusion marks another evolution. Though not a formal partner, Israel hosted the 2024 NATO Maritime Interdiction Operations Training Center exercise, sharing expertise on drone defense systems like the Iron Dome's naval variant. Cooperation remains carefully balanced. Joint exercises exclude participants refusing to work with Israeli forces. Comparative analysis reveals NATO's southern approach differs markedly from its eastern posture. The alliance avoids permanent bases, relying on rotational deployments like Spain's SNMG-2 naval group. Training emphasizes capacity building. Moroccan officers attend NATO cybersecurity courses rather than hosting combat units. Djibouti exemplifies the model's limits. While NATO trains Coast Guard personnel, it cannot counterbalance China's $3.5 billion economic hold over the strategically vital Horn of Africa state. Economic instruments complement military outreach. NATO's 2024 Strategic Stability Initiative funds projects like Jordanian wind farms, though skeptics note these $50 million efforts pale against China's Belt and Road investments. The Southern strategy's test lies in balancing member interests. France prioritizes the Sahel, Italy focuses on Libya, and Greece monitors Turkish activities. The 2025 rotation schedule reflects this. Portuguese Marines will lead Mediterranean patrols, while French forces handle North African training. Intelligence sharing reveals persistent trust gaps. Most partners receive filtered intelligence through Brussels, though Tunisia got real-time militant movement alerts during 2024 border clashes. Future expansion seems probable. Discussions include extending partnerships to Oman and Saudi Arabia, while Mauritania's potential accession remains controversial. Climate change may accelerate engagement as droughts increase instability. This southern reorientation demonstrates NATO's adaptability, from repelling Soviet tanks to intercepting drone shipments in Algeria. While lacking Article 5 guarantees, these partnerships prepare for scenarios where southern instability directly threatens European security. The southern frontier won't replace Russia as NATO's primary focus, but it's becoming integral to 21st century collective defense. The Sahel, NATO's strategic retreat? When French forces completed their withdrawal from Mali in November 2023, Russian Wagner Group mercenaries occupied abandoned bases within 72 hours. This transition marked a tipping point in NATO's African engagement strategy, from direct counterterrorism operations to a more selective partnership model. The shift reflects difficult realities about resource allocation as the alliance weighs African security demands against intensifying threats closer to Europe. NATO's African presence peaked in the late 2010s with initiatives like Operation Sea Guardians, maritime surveillance, and training missions in Niger. These produced successes. Joint NATO-EU programs degraded jihadist networks before the 2020 coups, but also revealed sustainability problems when political instability undermined partner governments. The Sahel's security deterioration shows the challenges. The region accounted for over half of global terrorism deaths last year, with groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS operating freely across Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, precisely where NATO previously concentrated efforts. Russian mercenaries compounded this by supporting juntas while securing mineral concessions. China's approach created a separate dilemma. While NATO focused on security, China invested over $120 billion in African infrastructure since 2010, building economic dependencies that security aid can't match. Chinese firms now control 70% of cobalt mining in Congo, a mineral essential for modern weapons. This limits NATO's influence as African governments increasingly see China as a development partner. Afghanistan's collapse shaped NATO's current approach. The alliance now avoids large combat formations in volatile regions, instead working through groups like the G5 Sahel Joint Force. Training programs emphasize skills transfer. Mauritania's Special Intervention Group and Nigeria's Special Operations Command recently received NATO counterterrorism instruction focused on sustainability. Personnel numbers tell the story. NATO dedicated 6,000 personnel to Africa at its peak. Today, fewer than 800 remain, mostly focused on coastal security. Some planners argue focusing on Mediterranean neighbors would better serve European interests. Logistics compound the challenge. Only 3 NATO members maintain African bases, and France's recent closures reduced quick reaction capacity. Resupplying forces during rainy seasons now requires prohibitively expensive airlifts. The partnership model adapts to these limits. NATO trains regional forces like ECOWAS's proposed 5,000-strong counter-terrorism unit and provides satellite imagery to African Union peacekeepers. Training now stresses logistics and intelligence over combat skills. Ghana's Kofi Annan Center teaches standardized procedures to officers from across the continent. Specialized counter-terrorism networks persist. Intelligence sharing nodes in Niger and Chad process drone surveillance data, recently exposing a Wagner disinformation campaign in Burkina Faso. Maritime security also remains a priority. NATO's Africa Partnership Station trained Angolan sailors last year, leading to 3 intercepted weapon shipments. But resource competition complicates efforts. Russia trades arms for mining rights, while China underbids Western contractors. NATO lacks equivalent economic incentives. A recent survey showed only 34% of Sahelians view NATO positively, compared to 51% favoring Russian assistance, despite its under ties. Budget realities reinforce pragmatism. Just 2.7% of NATO's 2024 military budget goes to Africa, down from 8.1% in 2020, with most covering existing programs. France cut its Sahel budget by 40% since 2022. The strategic retreat carries risks. Jihadists seized Malian territory after the army's collapse, while Russian mercenaries' abusive tactics often worsen instability. China's economic dominance may yield military gains. It already secured bases in Djibouti and Equatorial Guinea. Future engagement will likely use small lily pad bases for rapid response, rather than large installations. Italy proposed a Ghana logistics hub last year, while similar plans exist for Cabo Verde. And Senegal focused on naval support. This recalibration shows NATO's adaptive learning. The alliance now recognizes not every challenge requires direct intervention. By focusing on partnerships, maritime security, and intelligence, NATO maintains influence while preserving resources for core missions. A balance that has defined its most successful historical adaptations. The approach leaves options open. As climate change fuels conflicts across Africa, NATO's restrained presence allows future adjustments if conditions demand, a flexibility built into its partnership model. Climate security, NATO's newest frontier. The Arctic Ocean's summer ice cover has shrunk by 40% since 1979, opening new shipping lanes that have become military flashpoints. Russia established 6 new Arctic bases since 2021, including the upgraded Nagerskoye airfield capable of hosting nuclear-capable bombers. China's self-declared near-Arctic state status justified its 2023 deployment of icebreaker patrols near Svalbard. NATO responded by activating its Climate Change and Security Action Plan, an explicit recognition that melting permafrost and rising sea levels now directly impact collective defense. Climate security represents a fundamental shift for NATO. The original 1949 treaty never mentioned environmental factors, focusing solely on conventional military threats. This changed in 2021 when NATO's strategic concept first identified climate change as a security threat multiplier. The alliance now tracks 14 climate-related security risks, from drought-induced migration to military base flooding. Norfolk's Naval Station, home to NATO's Allied Command Transformation, faces 3 feet of sea level rise by 2050, threatening to submerge critical infrastructure. The operational impacts are undeniable. During 2024's Trident Juncture drills, Norwegian roads melted under record heat, delaying armored battalion movements. Spanish naval units encountered unprecedented Mediterranean storms that compromised missile tracking systems. These incidents led to NATO's Resilience Reference Curriculum, training officers to operate in wildfire smoke and 75 miles per hour winds, conditions once deemed too extreme for standard operations. Arctic militarization shows climate security's urgency. Russia's Northern Fleet now maintains continuous submarine patrols under thinning ice, while Canada's Nunavut Naval Facility required $120 million in upgrades to stabilize thawing permafrost. Satellite data reveals Arctic ship traffic surged 47% since 2020, including Chinese vessels mapping seabed resources. Climate-driven conflicts reveal stark linkages. The 2023 Sudanese civil war erupted over shrinking Nile tributaries, while Syria's 2006 to 2010 drought displaced 1.5 million farmers before its civil war. NATO intelligence attributes 38% of post-2010 conflicts to climate-related resource competition, with Italian analysts now tracking North African wheat yields as migration warning signs. Military infrastructure faces direct threats. A 2024 Pentagon study found 29 NATO bases vulnerable to Category 3 hurricanes, while Turkey's Incirlik airfield battles 122 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures that overload electrical systems. The U.S. Air Force spent $5 billion elevating Aviano's runways after repeated flooding, adaptations that are now operational necessities. NATO's response focuses on mitigation, adaptation, and foresight. The Netherlands' hybrid naval vessels cut fuel use by 30%, while German Leopard 3 tanks now feature desert cooling systems. Predictive tools like the Climate Impact Assessment tool project security scenarios through 2040, identifying flashpoints like Pakistan's glacier melt destabilizing Kashmir. Energy resilience is critical. Estonia's Amari Air Base runs entirely on renewable microgrids after Russian energy cutoffs, while Kongsberg's hybrid electric patrol boats extend Arctic mission endurance. NATO's 2025 Energy Efficiency Directive mandates sustainability standards for all new installations. Humanitarian missions now integrate climate considerations. During 2023 Pakistan floods, NATO deployed water purification units for saltwater contaminated supplies, a first that informed new disaster response protocols limiting personnel exposure to 90 minutes in extreme heat. Innovations tackle emerging challenges. NATO funds sand-resistant drone engines and Portuguese-designed Arctic buoys that measure ice thickness while detecting submarines. The NATO Security Investment Program allocated $1.2 billion for such climate-related upgrades through 2027. Training adapts to new realities. Tabletop exercises simulate climate-driven conflicts like Bangladeshi crop failures triggering mass migration, while soldiers learn emergency water sourcing, skills tested during Romania's 113 degrees Fahrenheit heatwave. Partnerships amplify NATO's efforts. EU satellites helped relocate Greek munition depots threatened by wildfires, while SpaceX launched dedicated climate monitoring payloads for Turkish bases. Critics initially questioned diverting resources from territorial defense, but evidence shows climate effects enable conventional threats, like Russia exploiting thawed wetlands during Ukraine's warm winter. NATO's permafrost maps now predict heavy armor deployment risks in Scandinavia. Budget shifts reflect priorities, with a $50 million annual climate security fund and mandatory climate assessments for procurements. The UK's new aircraft carrier includes wastewater recycling for water-scarce crises. Political compromises allow tailored national approaches, balancing Norway's oil economy with Germany's aggressive emissions targets. Results prove the strategy works. French forces avoided heat casualties using NATO hydration protocols during 2024 heatwaves, while Dutch engineers saved Baltic bases with climate-resilient designs. The frontier keeps expanding, with studies on ocean acidification degrading submarine detection and tropical diseases reaching temperate zones. Projects range from biodegradable ammunition to solar-powered bases, each maintaining military effectiveness while addressing environmental challenges. This evolution mirrors NATO's adaptation to cyber threats, proving its capacity to confront interconnected 21st century dangers while upholding 75 years of collective security principles. The technology race, NATO's silent war. While Russian and Ukrainian tanks exchange fire along the Eastern Front, a different kind of arms race unfolds in research facilities across NATO countries. The alliance's technological transformation represents the quiet frontline of modern defense, where breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and data analytics could determine future conflicts before traditional weapon systems engage. This silent war lacks the visceral imagery of battlefield destruction, but carries equal strategic weight. Military advantage now hinges on technological superiority more than raw firepower. NATO's 2023 strategic concept identified 7 critical technology areas: artificial intelligence, autonomy, quantum, biotechnology, hypersonics, space tech, and energy resilience. China leads in 4 categories, while Russia specializes in electronic warfare and hypersonic missiles. This drove NATO's $127 billion tech investment pledge through 2030, a digital chess match with global stakes. The data revolution transforms military operations. NATO's 2025 data strategy enables 32 nations to share battlefield analytics. During testing, Greek and Turkish ships exchanged submarine tracking data despite tensions. The system processes 2.6 petabytes daily, scanning the Library of Congress 12 times over, using AI to flag anomalies. Russia and China's technological surge forced NATO's hand. Moscow blinds satellites with electronic warfare, while Chinese AI processes sensor data 47% faster than NATO systems. Both aggressively acquire Western tech. Lithuania disrupted 5 semiconductor theft operations in 2024 alone. Hybrid applications blur civilian military boundaries. Russia's interference with SpaceX Starlink in Ukraine revealed commercial systems as combat tools. NATO's Trusted Connectivity Initiative vetted 2,300 suppliers, causing friction when replacing Chinese cameras at sensitive sites. AI now permeates NATO operations. The Baltic Sea monitoring network flagged a suspicious cargo ship last March, revealing Russian sonar buoys under civilian cover. At NATO's Innovation Hub, anthropologists work with coders to remove cultural biases from targeting algorithms. Quantum represents NATO's most guarded research. A classified network links 6 members' facilities. Quantum radar prototypes at Norway's Vardo Observatory can detect stealth aircraft. Soon, quantum-resistant encryption will protect all classified communications. Private sector collaboration brings both innovation and risk. The Defense Innovation Accelerator funds startups like a German firm developing swarm drones. When NATO contracted Google Cloud, negotiators barred employee access to operational data over espionage fears. NATO recruits STEM talent through programs like the Digital Defenders Fellowship. Estonian cyber conscripts work alongside officers, though only 34% of senior leaders have adequate digital literacy, prompting mandatory tech courses. Standardization remains challenging. 7 members use incompatible battlefield networks. The Digital Interoperability Framework aims to fix this by 2027, but retrofitting legacy gear costs 4.3 billion euros. Small wins matter. Dutch artillery used Polish drone data in 2024 exercises. Supply chain security is critical. Chinese firms control 82% of rare earth processing. NATO funds alternatives like Linus Rare Earths Texas facility for military-grade magnets. The pace of change strains NATO's consensus. Estonia pushes aggressive AI deployment, while cautious nations demand ethical reviews. The compromise AI governance framework balances oversight with innovation, tested during debates over autonomous Aegean patrol boats. Intellectual property complicates collaboration. NATO's Tech Transfer Office manages patents worth billions. A 2024 dispute over French-developed metamaterials took months to resolve. Operational security grows more complex. Counterintelligence specialists now vet all projects. Latvian AI logistics software was modified to hide deployment patterns after Russian hacking attempts. The human cost surfaces too. Drone operators suffer combat-level stress. NATO mandates rest cycles for neural interface teams. Psychologists monitor developers of autonomous weapons for ethical stress. Progress is measurable but uneven. NATO's Tech Readiness Index shows 22% overall improvement since 2020, yet hypersonic defense and biotech lag. Russia's nuclear-powered cruise missile test accelerated satellite interceptor development. Budget realities shape priorities. The $127 billion plan requires tough choices. Poland shifted tank funds to AI. Norway tapped sovereign wealth for quantum. Annual reviews ensure commitments become spending. identifying $3.1 billion in delayed projects. NATO's tech evolution serves dual purposes. Weather satellites aid climate monitoring, while secure networks supported pandemic response. Danish lawmakers approved a 40% tech spending hike partly for disaster benefits. The alliance faces its biggest transformation since the nuclear age. AI assistance will deploy at every command level by 2026. Quantum encryption protects all classified comms by 2028. These advancements maintain NATO's edge if balanced against ethics, budgets, and geopolitics. This silent technology war will define 21st century deterrence. Just as stealth and precision weapons shaped late 1900s conflicts, AI and quantum sensing will decide future battles. NATO must master information age crisis warfare management without losing combat the human values. When a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck southeastern Turkey in February 2023, NATO activated its Euro-Atlantic Disaster Response Coordination Center within 47 minutes. The operation deployed search and rescue teams from 19 member states, field hospitals from Poland and Italy, and strategic airlift support from the U.S. Air Mobility Command. Spanish rescue workers pulled survivors from collapsed apartment blocks, while Italian medics treated injuries in makeshift tents. This rapid mobilization demonstrated NATO's crisis management capabilities, stabilization efforts that prevent secondary security collapses. The earthquake zone bordered conflict-prone northern Syria, where displaced populations and damaged infrastructure could have fueled renewed violence without intervention. NATO's crisis operations have expanded significantly since 2020, conducting 19 non-Article 5 response missions. These range from wildfire containment in Portugal to pandemic logistics in North Macedonia, using military assets for civilian relief. The process begins with NATO's Situation Center assessing requests, then coordinating through 3 dedicated headquarters: Operational Command in Mons, Logistical Planning in Lisbon, and Medical Coordination in Brussels. The COVID-19 pandemic tested these systems at scale. When Italy's healthcare system neared collapse in March 2020, NATO delivered 101 Norwegian ventilators within 72 hours. The alliance established supply chains moving oxygen concentrators from the U.S. to Czechia and vaccines from Germany to Lithuania. These were strategic stability measures. Vulnerable populations create openings for adversarial influence, as seen in Russian and Chinese attempts to leverage medical aid for political concessions. The Turkey earthquake response involved 12,000 personnel from 28 nations operating under unified NATO command while coordinating with local authorities. Spanish engineers cleared rubble from roads used by Turkish military convoys, while German chemical units prevented toxins from leaking into refugee camps. Such integration resulted from years of planning. The 2018 Civil Emergency Planning Exercise specifically rehearsed earthquake scenarios with multinational forces. Mediterranean migrant operations show crisis management intersecting with security. Operation Sea Guardian's patrols now include search and rescue components. Italian and Greek frigates under NATO command rescued 2,137 migrants in 2024 while disrupting smuggling networks. The mission balances legal obligations with security screening, streamlined by biometric protocols developed during Afghan evacuations. NATO's 2021 policy framework established standing rapid response teams for 5 scenarios: natural disasters, industrial accidents, refugee emergencies, pandemics, and infrastructure failures. Norway leads the disaster unit with underwater rescue specialists, while Germany oversees the pandemic team with mobile labs. The system activates proportionately. When wildfires threatened Greek munitions depots, NATO deployed firefighting aircraft without full emergency protocols. Energy security operations demonstrate crisis prevention. When Russia cut gas to Bulgaria in 2022, NATO coordinated emergency LNG shipments through Greek terminals and Turkish Straits patrols. This prevented heating shortages that could have destabilized Bulgaria's government. NATO now maintains a classified energy stability index, ranking member vulnerabilities. Technological integration enhances responses. The Emergency Communications Protocol debuted during 2023 Slovenian floods, maintaining connectivity after cellular networks failed. AI tools detected panic buying in Romania after the Turkey earthquake, enabling NATO to preposition supplies. Political constraints persist. France initially declined NATO help during 2022 wildfires until flames neared a nuclear facility. New thresholds now trigger automatic offers. Wildfires exceeding 50,000 acres or earthquakes above 6.5 magnitude. Infrastructure investments bolster readiness. NATO's 2023 fund allocated 800 million euros for dual-use facilities. Portugal's naval yard converts to a disaster hub, while Lithuania's field hospitals double as trauma centers. The alliance stockpiles relief supplies at 7 locations, including 450,000 N95 masks in Dutch warehouses. Training exercises prepare for complex crises. The 2024 scenario simulated a cyber attack on Greek hospitals during migrant arrivals and an earthquake, testing coordination under triple stresses. Long-term monitoring tracks 37 environmental indicators. Analysts predicted Mali's 2023 food riots through drought metrics, though political constraints prevented action. The system now prioritizes NATO territory. Detecting Tunisian tensions last November enabled preemptive stability programs. Partnerships extend reach. Morocco completed nuclear response drills with Czech experts, while Ukraine contributes mine clearers to relief efforts. Jordan shared critical airflow models during Turkey's earthquake through NATO contacts. NATO estimates its crisis operations prevented for regional conflicts since 2020 by containing instability. The 2023 Western Balkans report credited flood relief in Serbia with preventing ethnic tensions. Future plans include civilian response corps, AI warning systems, and sea-based humanitarian stocks. Standing crisis battalions with engineers, medics, and cyber specialists could deploy within 72 hours. These capabilities become vital as climate change produces more emergencies. NATO's ability to coordinate across 32 nations provides unique advantages, an institutionalized crisis capacity complementing its defensive role. The China Conundrum. NATO members face incompatible positions regarding Chinese technology. Hungary installed Huawei 5G networks at railway hubs in 2024, while Britain spent £2.3 billion removing the same company's equipment from its telecom systems. This divergence reflects the core dilemma. China represents both an economic partner and security threat, a double-edged sword forcing members to balance immediate risks against long-term competitiveness. The European Union's $312 billion in annual trade with China for sensitive technologies illustrates the depth of this bind. Germany's automotive sector relies on Chinese rare earth metals for EV batteries, while France's nuclear industry sources specialized alloys from Chinese suppliers. These dependencies make blanket bans impractical. When NATO proposed decoupling guidelines in 2022, 7 members requested extended transition periods for critical imports. Security risks became undeniable after Russia's Ukraine invasion. Russian forces used Chinese-made DJI drones for reconnaissance and Chinese-origin chips in cruise missile guidance systems. NATO electronic warfare units later identified Huawei equipment signatures in Russian signals intelligence along alliance borders. These findings accelerated existing security measures. Germany implemented Huawei restrictions in 2023 after intercepts of classified communications. The Rheinmetall Lockheed Martin joint venture exemplifies NATO's industrial response. The $4.7 billion project produces missile guidance systems using purely Western microelectronics in a clean facility near Munich with strict personnel vetting. This model is being replicated for radar and satellite equipment through similar arrangements. NATO's technology security guidelines attempt standardization, classifying systems into 3 risk tiers. Implementation sparked disputes. Italy initially argued highway surveillance cameras should be unrestricted before evidence showed their military monitoring potential. The guidelines evolve quarterly, now covering risks like Chinese-funded university research programs. Maritime infrastructure presents acute concerns. China's COSCO Shipping operates terminals in 14 NATO ports, including strategic hubs like Rotterdam. NATO's Port Security Coordination Cell discovered Chinese container scanners imaging military equipment during routine shipments, prompting 6 members to replace inspection systems. Interdependence creates intelligence vulnerabilities. NATO confirmed TikTok collected location data near European bases, correlating movements with social media to identify personnel. More subtle risks emerged in 2024 when Chinese logistics software in Belgian military warehouses contained hidden data exfiltration routines. The private sector complicates enforcement. After NATO banned Chinese surveillance cameras, manufacturers routed equipment through third country subsidiaries. Italian customs intercepted made-in-Malaysia cameras containing modified Huawei components. NATO's denied vendors list now exceeds 300 Chinese-linked entities, but enforcement varies across members. China's military-civil fusion doctrine ensures strategic concerns persist. Companies receiving state subsidies must share technology with the PLA, a policy that turned Norway's $60 million Chinese underwater research fleet into a security liability. Allied coordination meets economic reality unevenly. Poland replaced all Chinese telecom equipment by 2024 through a $1.2 billion program, while Spain still uses Huawei in non-core networks due to budget constraints. These disparities create weak links. Malware recently penetrated Portuguese military networks via Spanish telecom nodes. Alternative suppliers emerge slowly. Nokia and Ericsson can't meet full European 5G demand, forcing risk-managed Chinese deployments. Chinese firms also dominate 70% of the commercial drone market, leaving NATO dependent until European alternatives mature in 2026. Political divisions add complexity. Hungary vetoed stronger NATO statements on Chinese risks in 2023, while Turkey maintains missile defense cooperation with China. These splits yield case-by-case compromises that leave technological seams across alliance infrastructure. NATO's response emphasizes risk management. The Smart Connectivity Initiative certifies select Chinese components after intensive testing and firmware modifications, adding 15 to 30% to costs, but enabling essential operations. The Dutch Navy used this approach for patrol vessel navigation systems, lacking Western alternatives. The long-term trajectory points toward decoupling. Russia's weaponization of Western technology in Ukraine convinced many members to treat Chinese components as unacceptable risks. The 2024 Washington Summit set a goal of 50% reductions in Chinese critical tech dependence by 2030, with interim solutions like stockpiling legacy equipment spare parts. This landscape reshapes global partnerships. NATO now considers technological alignment when evaluating cooperation. Singapore's adoption of NATO cybersecurity standards enabled deeper intelligence sharing. Similar outreach extends to India and Vietnam through the Technology Security Partnership Program. Military exercises incorporate new threats. The 2024 Steadfast Defender drills tested maintaining operations during GPS disruptions from suspected Chinese electronic warfare, with lessons institutionalized through the Resilient Navigation Warfare Program. Personnel policies adapt through expanded vetting for those with Chinese educational or employment backgrounds. Over 4,000 specialists have trained in Chinese technical espionage detection at the NATO Communications and Information Academy since 2023. Economic costs remain substantial. Full defense system replacements could exceed $112 billion across members. NATO's Economic Resilience Working Group coordinates efforts to mitigate job losses and industrial disruptions during transitions. Forward-looking strategies emphasize innovation. The €1 billion Defense Innovation Accelerator funds startups developing secure alternatives in quantum communications, European drones, and rare earth processing, efforts requiring years to rebalance dependencies. The China Conundrum has no immediate resolution. NATO navigates between security necessities and economic realities, preserving cohesion while recognizing technological security now equals territorial defense in maintaining deterrent credibility. Defense production, the industrial backbone. The Rheinmetall Lockheed Martin Joint Missile Production Facility in Unterlüss, Germany, began full operations in March 2024. The complex spans 42 hectares, with 6 production lines capable of manufacturing 5,000 precision-guided munitions monthly. This facility represents Europe's defense industrial revival, a direct response to supply shortages during the Ukraine conflict that exposed critical vulnerabilities. Key challenges driving this revival. NATO assessments show European munition stockpiles had dwindled to just 15 days of intense combat requirements by 2021. Germany lost 37% of defense manufacturing capacity between 1990 to 2020. France's defense industrial workforce shrank from 450,000 to 185,000 over the same period. The Unterlüss facility required 2 years to recruit and train 1,400 specialized workers, drawing from automotive and aerospace industries due to lost armaments expertise. Post-Cold War decisions compounded these issues. Belgium dismantled tank production in 2001. Spain converted artillery shell factories to civilian use in 2007. When the U.S. prioritized Ukraine for HIMARS shipments in 2023, NATO members faced 18-month wait times for replenishment orders. This crisis revealed advanced weapons systems mean little without munitions to fire. Rheinmetall's HIMARS program illustrates the industrial response. European alternative to HIMARS using NATO standard 227mm rockets. German automation and Dutch fire control technology. Supply chain network across 84 companies in 15 NATO countries. NATO's 2023 Industrial Capacity Review introduced binding production targets. 30,000 artillery shells monthly. 500 anti-tank missiles quarterly. 100 medium-range air defense interceptors annually. Compliance requires major restructuring. Poland converted tractor factories to ammunition production. Norway established microelectronics plants for missile guidance systems. Germany allocated 10 billion euros for facility conversions. Technological gaps emerged during revivals. Portugal found Cold War-era machinery couldn't produce precision GPS-guided shells. NATO's Solution Development Initiative funded 220 million euros for AI-assisted upgrades. Supply chain vulnerabilities became critical after Russian sabotage incidents. Key findings. 92% of European propellant nitrocellulose comes from China. NATO now monitors 17 critical material flows and funds alternative sources. Standardization efforts face resistance. French manufacturers initially refused NATO-compliant shell designs. Compliance achieved only after funding threats in 2024. Workforce development shows mixed results. NATO's Defense Skills Initiative trained 42,000 technicians since 2022. Norwegian. Naval apprentice schools tripled graduation rates. Czech firms still report 29% vacancy rates for specialists. Economic benefits build political support. Rheinmetall's complex supports 3,700 indirect jobs. Lithuania's ammunition plant cut local unemployment from 14% to 7%. NATO's 2024 Thunderbolt exercise tested industrial surge capacity. Required 300% artillery shell output increase in 60 days. German/Polish facilities met targets. Spanish/Portuguese stalled at 180%. Private sector coordination through NATO Industry Advisory Group revealed. Missile component purchases previously required 17 signatures. Streamlined procedures cut processing times by 63%. Beyond munitions, NATO addresses other critical gaps. Airframe Sustainment Program expands F-35 and drone production. European Patrol Corvette Program reduces naval costs by 40%. Quality control improvements show progress. Artillery shell rejection rates fell from 12% to 4% in 2024. The Ukraine Assistance Fund tests the new capacity. 40 billion euro commitment requires sustained donations without depleting stockpiles. Germany confirms indefinite artillery shell production capability. Remaining challenges. No European production for advanced jet engines or hypersonic components. 17 priority areas identified in NATO's 2025 assessment. This industrial shift reflects a strategic realization. Defense production isn't an economic burden, but a security imperative. As Czech President Petr Pavel observed, factories don't win wars, but without them, no war can be won. Gender and security, the unlikely link. The NATO Gender Conference in Oslo this year focused on measurable operational impacts. Researchers presented data showing mixed-gender military units consistently outperform homogeneous ones in stabilization missions, reflecting 25 years of practical experience since UN Resolution 1325. NATO now treats gender diversity as a force multiplier. Canada's experience in Afghanistan demonstrated this principle. Female soldiers in Operation Attention achieved 40% more intelligence contacts with Afghan women than male-only units. Their access to half the population provided critical Taliban movement intelligence, leading NATO to formalize mixed-gender deployments. While percentages vary, 17% female combat personnel in the U.S. versus Norway's 33% target, the operational benefits are clear. Resistance persists in traditional military cultures. A 2024 NATO survey found 28% of male soldiers in Eastern Europe still believe women reduce combat effectiveness. This creates real barriers. Bulgaria delayed integration until NATO accession requirements force change. Yet data contradicts stereotypes. Swedish mixed tank crews maintain superior situational awareness. Dutch female naval gunners score 12% higher in marksmanship, and Lithuanian mixed cyber teams solve problems 9% faster. The human impact emerges in stories like Norwegian Special Forces integration. After initial skepticism in 2014, the unit's effectiveness scores improved across all NATO criteria within a decade. Female operators excelled in human intelligence, a skill critical in modern conflicts. U.S. SOCOM now studies their methods. Conflict resolution shows similar patterns. When NATO deployed female negotiators during 2024 Kosovo tensions, de-escalation occurred 30% faster than with all-male teams. UN data confirms this trend. Peace agreements involving women are 35% more likely to last 15 years. Practical adaptations followed these findings. The NATO Committee on Gender Perspectives 2021 checklist now shapes everything from equipment to base design. When Polish women reported ill-fitting body armor, NATO mandated adjustable designs. Norwegian female soldiers' feedback improved cold weather gear. Even small arms evolved. Belgium's FN Herstal redesigned rifle stocks after female soldiers highlighted ergonomic issues. Recruitment strategies evolved alongside equipment. Germany tripled female officer candidates through mentoring programs, while Canada achieved gender parity in military academy admissions this year. These changes address demographic realities. NATO needs to fill 1.2 million defense positions by 2030 as Cold War-era personnel retire. Healthcare adaptations reflect similar progress. NATO established gender-specific field care protocols after research revealed different injury patterns under combat stress. New evacuation procedures account for physiological differences without compromising care, a lesson learned when earlier ad hoc approaches reduced mission effectiveness. The social dimension proves equally important. Gender balance patrols in Kosovo report 42% fewer escalation incidents, attributed to broader communication skills. Similar effects appear in cyber operations. Mixed teams demonstrate superior social engineering resistance in NATO exercises. Challenges remain. France's fitness standards disproportionately disadvantage female candidates, while Poland struggles. With sexual harassment reporting, only 12% of incidents get documented despite NATO protocols. Yet progress continues. Women in NATO leadership rose from 18% to 27% since 2021, and missions with gender advisors increased from 9 to 28 since 2015. Countries exceeding NATO's diversity benchmarks consistently rank higher in readiness assessments. As NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg noted in Oslo, this isn't about fairness, it's about winning. The data supports this. Diverse forces outperform homogeneous ones across NATO's mission spectrum. This performance gap grows as modern conflict prioritizes cognitive flexibility over raw strength, making NATO's shift from token inclusion to capability enhancement one of its most consequential evolutions. Former President Trump's potential return to office represents the most immediate test of NATO's institutional resilience since the Cold War. The alliance has weathered political volatility before. During the 1956 Suez Crisis, the U.S. opposed actions by two founding members without fracturing collective security. Today's challenges differ more in rhetoric than operational substance, with NATO's internal assessments confirming its bureaucratic structures and strategic interests endure beyond any administration. European preparations reveal a pattern of pragmatic adaptation. Germany's classified Sicherheitssenker protocols outline contingency coordination with France's nuclear forces and prepositioned munition stockpiles, a model replicated across the continent. Poland's 2024 Article 5 exercises simulated consultations without full U.S. engagement, testing alternative command structures where European officers assume typically American roles. These measures share a common thread, creating operational redundancies while maintaining alliance cohesion. Public opinion reflects this strategic shift. The European Defence Fund's €8 billion budget now prioritizes capabilities like strategic airlift and missile defense, areas traditionally reliant on U.S. assets. As French President Macron framed it during the 2024 Munich Security Conference, European sovereignty doesn't subtract from transatlantic bonds. It multiplies their reliability. This careful messaging underscores efforts to strengthen NATO through European capability, growth, rather than replacement. Historical precedents highlight NATO's institutional shock absorbers. The 1966 French withdrawal from NATO's military command forced practical adjustments without collapsing collective defense, while Turkey's S-400 purchase dispute demonstrated how operational pauses needn't compromise fundamental alliance integrity. Such episodes reveal built-in resilience mechanisms that have repeatedly proven effective. Current defense investments create tangible buffers. Poland's 4% GDP spending, NATO's highest, focuses on complementary rather than dependent systems. Germany accelerated its €100 billion modernization fund, prioritizing anti-air systems and ammunition production. The 21-nation European Sky Shield Initiative reduces reliance on U.S. Patriot batteries through joint missile defense procurement. These parallel developments fortify NATO's deterrent against political fluctuations. NATO's military bureaucracy operates with substantial autonomy. SHAPE's permanent multinational staff includes only 27% U.S. officers, while standardized planning procedures require consensus from all 32 members. This distributed authority prevents unilateral disruption, a design validated through multiple crises. Legal frameworks further insulate operations, with over 17,000 personnel in multinational commands continuing exercises like 2024's Steadfast Defender despite 5 member states undergoing government transitions. Allied Command Transformation provides long-term continuity. Its Norfolk-based civilian staff develops capabilities across 5 to 10-year horizons, with strategic foresight explicitly modeling varied U.S. engagement scenarios. Recent war games tested European-led regional security frameworks, ensuring doctrine evolves independently of political cycles. Financial mechanisms promote stability. The €3.3 billion common funding system requires unanimous approval, but resists unilateral alteration. When Hungary blocked 2023 infrastructure upgrades, NATO simply rerouted funds through alternative instruments. The Separate Security Investment Program locks in multi-year projects like satellite communications, creating financial momentum that transcends disputes. Nuclear deterrence incorporates multiple safeguards. While US B-61 bombs require American authorization, NATO's nuclear planning group ensures collective consultation. France's independent forces, though outside formal command, remain available for European defense, a layered system that reassures Eastern members concerned about commitment fluctuations. Standardization enables operational flexibility. STANAG protocols ensure compatibility from ammunition to data links, allowing Spanish Eurofighters to seamlessly cover Denmark's air defense during 2023 upgrades. Industrial capacity expansions, like Rheinmetall's artillery shell production surpassing U.S. facilities, reduce immediate resupply dependencies. Personnel exchanges reinforce institutional bonds. Over 1,200 senior officers rotate annually through the Personnel Exchange Program, creating professional networks that transcend government changes. The NATO Response Forces 2024 reorganization reflects this approach, with a Spanish general now commanding the Rapid Reaction Unit and 12 nations contributing core elements. Regular pressure testing validates contingency plans. The 2023 political military exercise simulated a Baltic crisis with delayed U.S. involvement, successfully demonstrating European-led phased responses while maintaining alliance cohesion. Such drills confirm NATO's decision-making functions under stress. Secretary General Stoltenberg's extended tenure until October 2024 provides experienced leadership through political transitions. More fundamentally, NATO endures because collective security remains the most cost-effective defense model. The alternative of independent infrastructures would dwarf current contributions. This strategic calculus convinces members to weather temporary tensions. The alliance that survived de Gaulle's nationalism and détente-era skepticism continues implementing long-term initiatives like NATO 2030. While reduced U.S. engagement would require difficult adjustments, accelerated European capability development, revised contingency plans. History suggests such evolution strengthens rather than weakens NATO. Current preparations institutionalize past lessons, ensuring the alliance remains intact regardless of electoral outcomes. Ukraine, the live fire exercise. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 became a brutal live-fire laboratory for NATO doctrine and equipment. Ukrainian forces have tested 42 NATO standard weapon systems under actual combat conditions, a dataset more comprehensive than any alliance exercise could produce. The results fundamentally challenge pre-war assumptions about modern warfare. Consider the Leopard 2 A6 tank crews who learned the hard way about drone vulnerabilities when operating without electronic warfare protection. Or the HIMARS teams who maintained 96% mission readiness despite constant Russian counter-battery fire. Their modified rockets striking targets 22% beyond rated ranges. These aren't theoretical scenarios, but lived experiences now reshaping NATO's force structure. The conflict revealed artillery's enduring dominance, with Ukrainian gunners burning through 6,000 to 8,000 shells daily, more than Europe's entire monthly production capacity at war start. This forced NATO to abandon just-in-time logistics for war reserves. Germany now stocks 30 days of artillery ammunition instead of 5. Similar adjustments followed NATO's 2023 munitions review, proving that industrial-scale attrition remains decisive. Key battlefield lessons. Armor survival. 2 900-plus Russian tanks. Lost demonstrated even advanced platforms need layered protection. Drone warfare. Ukrainian FPV drones achieved 73% strike rates, outpacing existing defenses. Electronic resilience. Modified JDM bombs hit 84% of targets despite GPS jamming. Air power. Outnumbered Ukrainian MiG-29s maintained a 3-to-1 kill ratio with NATO missiles. The human dimension proved equally transformative. Ukrainian medics reduced preventable combat deaths to 6%. Half NATO's previous benchmark, using improvised tourniquets, now standard alliance equipment. Special forces teams operating 50 kilometers behind enemy lines rewrote small unit tactics, while civilian-developed targeting apps cut artillery response times by 40%. Industrial lessons cut deepest. Rheinmetall needed 18 months to triple shell production, too slow for sustained war. NATO now maintains warm production lines, paying $200 million annually to keep artillery plants idling, but ready. The painful truth. Production speed matters as much as technological edge. Most sobering was the nuclear lesson. Russian threats failed to stop Western arms, but enforced unspoken limits. No weapons for strikes deep inside Russia. This informs NATO's new deterrence spectrum, doctrine for future crises. As NATO's Ukraine lessons office processes urban warfare tactics and cross-country supply routes, one conclusion emerges. Future conflicts will blend cutting-edge tech with industrial attrition. The 2025 force structure reflects this. Drone battalions beside artillery brigades, electronic warfare teams at company level, stockpiles for prolonged fighting. Ukraine's war has given NATO something no exercise could. Real data against a peer opponent without committing its own forces. The cost has been Ukraine's to bear, but the lessons are transforming NATO faster than any peacetime wargame. When historians look back, they may judge this painful knowledge transfer as the conflict's most enduring strategic impact, preparing the alliance not just for theoretical threats, but for war as it's actually fought. The 2030 horizon. The 2024 Washington Summit decisions set NATO's course toward 2030, a period that will test whether the alliance can maintain cohesion amid diverging threats and priorities. The summit committed members to 3 transformational goals: integrating space and cyber operations, achieving 50% emissions reductions in military activities, and implementing AI-assisted decision-making across all command levels. Each objective faces implementation challenges as members weigh costs against national interests. Germany and France disagree over nuclear. Modernization timelines. Eastern European states push for faster force buildup than Southern members consider necessary. These tensions reflect fundamental questions about NATO's primary purpose in the coming decade. Projected threats through 2030 paint a complex security landscape. Russia could reconstitute most of its pre-2022 military capacity by 2028, while China's nuclear arsenal may triple. Climate instability, quantum computing threats, and AI-driven disinformation add layers of risk. NATO identifies 7 potential flashpoints, from Arctic competition to undersea vulnerabilities, each demanding unique responses that strain limited resources. Like a ship navigating stormy seas, NATO must adapt to survive. The alliance tracks progress across 23 capability areas, revealing uneven readiness. Cyber defense improved significantly while ammunition stocks lag. Annual planning cycles now incorporate battlefield lessons faster, as Ukraine demonstrated when real-time data forced doctrine updates within months. History offers cautionary tales. The 1999 strategic concept took 8 years to implement fully, with some members resisting non-territorial missions until Libya forced compliance. The 2002 Prague commitment achieved only partial success due to funding gaps. The 2024 summit addressed such hurdles by making targets legally binding, though enforcement remains unproven. The 2025 to 2030 planning cycle channels innovation through 3 streams: technological, operational, and organizational. Members lead specialized initiatives: Portugal on quantum communications, Poland on unmanned systems, Belgium on personnel shortages. This distributed model prevents single-point failures when national priorities shift. Budget realities temper ambitions. Implementing all 2030 goals requires $127 billion in additional spending, an unlikely uniform increase. While the European Defense Fund helps, AI integration alone needs $23 billion upfront. Peer pressure through annual reviews encourages compliance, with 19 members now meeting spending targets compared to 9 in 2021. Standardization challenges persist as capabilities expand. With 61 artillery systems and 78 infantry vehicle variants, the alliance aims to have discrepancies by 2028 through common designs. Early progress includes 7 members adopting standardized cyber interfaces, but legacy upgrades continue draining funds from next-gen technologies. Demographic trends compound these challenges. Shrinking military-age populations in 23 countries by 2030 require creative solutions. Retention bonuses, expanded reserves, female recruitment, and automation. Germany's Skills First program, hiring civilian specialists, has been adopted by 14 members. Nuclear modernization sparks debate. While US and UK programs proceed, disagreements over European basing and France's independent deterrence surface in planning meetings. Deferred decisions could undermine deterrence credibility if unresolved by 2030. China presents strategic dilemmas. German and Italian manufacturers resist decoupling from Chinese supply chains, while Portugal prioritizes Atlantic concerns. NATO's 2024 China policy paper advocates risk management, a compromise preserving minimal cohesion. Exercises now test hybrid capabilities against 2030 threats. The 2025 Steadfast Jupiter war game will simulate simultaneous cyberattacks, space interference, and terrorist strikes, with 40% unscripted challenges. This $370 million drill involves 90,000 personnel, including space assets tracking hypersonic threats. Institutional reforms aim to future-proof decision-making. A new chief innovation officer oversees adaptability, while measure-by-measure voting reduces veto powers. Most significantly, a permanent lessons learned command institutionalizes Ukraine war insights across all capabilities. Partnerships extend NATO's reach without enlargement. Pacific allies participate in cyber and maritime operations, while EU defense integration reinforces European capabilities, though duplication risks remain. The 2030 horizon presents NATO's most complex environment yet. Maintaining technological edge while addressing climate and disruptive tech requires unprecedented agility. Financial and political constraints demand tough choices. Yet the alliance's greatest strength remains its adaptability, a trait more valuable than any single weapon or doctrine. Strategic flexibility defines NATO precisely because rigidity would shatter under modern pressures. As threats evolve from tanks to quantum hackers, NATO's learning capacity must outpace them all. The coming years will test whether current transformations meet this imperative or demand more fundamental reinvention. Every major NATO adaptation, from nuclear integration to out-of-area missions, first provoked crises before strengthening the alliance. Today's changes follow this pattern, compressed into shorter time frames across multiple fronts. The NATO of 2030 will look different, but its core mission will endure precisely because it chose adaptation over resistance. The decisions made today write that future in real time. NATO in 2025 shows how institutions thrive by adapting rather than clinging to the past. The alliance formed against Soviet tanks now safeguards seabed cables from Estonia to Portugal, while fighter jets coordinate with climate monitoring drones. Cyber teams collaborate with energy analysts to prevent winter shortages, all by applying collective security principles to modern threats. When cyber attacks and pipeline sabotage struck, allies invoked Article 5 just as they would for traditional attacks. This adaptability is NATO's strength, defending shared values through evolving means. As challenges grow more complex, that flexibility ensures the alliance remains indispensable, not by preserving old methods, but by relentlessly innovating.